She accepted the nerd's invitation just to fulfill a bet. He was the biggest joke in school, shy, weird, and invisible, but nobody knew that that boy was a young millionaire. On prom night, the truth came out, and the tables turned. This story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us from which city you're watching us. We continue. Marina adjusted her red lipstick for the 10th time in front of the mirror, while her mother, Beatrice, watched her, with critical eyes from the other side of the room. The impeccable uniform of the St. Perrin school, one of the most prestigious in the capital, highlighted her slender figure even more. It was just another normal day in the life of the most popular girl in school, or at least that's what everyone thought. Marina, my dear, don't forget about the charity event tonight. The Muller family will be there, and you know how important it is to keep up appearances, Beatrice said, adjusting a stray strand of her daughter's hair. And please stay away from that weird boy in your class. What's his name again? Lucas, Marina replied, rolling her eyes internally. And he's not weird, Mom, he's just different. Different doesn't fit our standard, daughter. Always remember that. Marina sighed discreetly as she descended the marble stairs of the mansion where she lived. The driver was already waiting for her in the shiny black Porsche. Another day of performance was beginning. At school, her entrance was always a spectacle. The main doors seemed to open automatically for her, as if even the building recognized her unofficial royalty. Her best friends, or at least the people, who held that position, were already waiting for her in the main hallway. "Mary, you're not going to believe what just happened," Valentina, the most flamboyant of the group, exclaimed, her perfectly styled blonde hair bouncing with excitement. "The prom committee just announced that we can bring dates from outside the school." "As if she needed it," Isabella commented, rolling her eyes with a smirk. "Everyone wants to go with Marina." The group moved through the halls like a force of nature, other students instinctively stepping aside to make way. Marina smiled and waved, her mask of perfection firmly in place. But her eyes captured details that no one else noticed, like Lucas, sitting alone in the back of the library, absorbed in a quantum physics book. His thick-framed glasses slipped down his nose, and his clothes, although clean and well-groomed, were far from the designer standards that dominated the school. There was something about him that intrigued Marina, a serenity that seemed to defy all the superficiality around him. "Mari, are you listening to me?" Valentina's voice brought her back to reality. "We were thinking of doing something different this year. Something that will keep everyone talking about us until after college." Valentina's smile had a hint of cruelty that Marina knew well. It was the same smile that preceded several moments of public humiliation that her group had orchestrated over the years. "What if the queen of the school did something really unexpected?" Isabella suggested, leaning closer. "Something like asking the biggest loser in school to the prom?" Marina's heart raced, but her face maintained perfect composure. Years of social training wouldn't let her falter now. "And why would I do that?" he asked, keeping his tone casual. "Because it would be hilarious," Valentina exclaimed. "Just imagine, you ask Lucas out, make him feel special for a few weeks, and then at the dance—" She paused dramatically. "Boom! Total humiliation. I can already see the videos going viral." Marina felt something twist in her stomach. It wasn't the first time she had participated in her friend's cruelties, but something felt different now. Maybe it was the genuine looks she sometimes exchanged with Lucas during physics class, or the way he seemed completely oblivious to the social games that consumed everyone's lives there. "I don't know," she began, but Isabella interrupted. "Are you going to say that you're scared, or worse, that you feel sorry for him?" The challenge had been thrown down. Marina knew that to hesitate now would be to show weakness, something her mother had always said was unforgivable in the world they lived in. "Of course not," he replied with a practiced smile. "I'm just thinking about the best way to do it." The girls celebrated silently, already plotting the details of their plan. Marina kept the smile on her face, but her eyes wandered back to the library. Lucas had lifted his head from his book and was watching her with a curious expression, as if he could see through all her masks. At that moment, something inside her trembled. A small crack appeared in the perfect surface she had built over the years, and for the first time, Marina wondered if she was ready for the consequences of her choices. The next morning, Marina arrived at school early. Her footsteps echoed through the still empty hallways as she headed to the library, knowing she would find Lucas there. It was her morning ritual, something she had discreetly observed over the months. As she pushed open the heavy wooden door, the smell of old books enveloped her. Lucas was in his usual spot, a table near the science section. Today, in addition to the physics textbook, there were several papers spread out in front of him, covered with complex diagrams that Marina couldn't understand. "Hi," she said, her voice softer than usual, without the artificial tone she usually used in the hallways. Lucas looked up in surprise. For a moment, Marina could see something in his gaze. Not the dazed astonishment it was accustomed to eliciting, but a kind of analytical curiosity that disconcerted her. "Good morning, Marina," he replied, adjusting his glasses. "Can I help you with anything?" She hesitated. The plan was simple: approach him, flirt a little, ask him to the dance, but something about the way he looked at her made it harder. "Actually, I wanted to talk about prom," she began, sitting down in the tilt-up chair across from him. "Do you have a date yet?" Lucas tilted his head slightly, a half-smile playing on his lips. "Interesting you should ask that." "Why?" "Because last night I received a very curious video," he replied, taking out his phone. "Someone accidentally included me in a private WhatsApp group. There was a recording of you and your friends." Marina's blood ran cold. Lucas turned the phone screen toward her, but didn't press play. There was no need. She knew exactly what was there. "Lucas, no need to explain," he interrupted her gently. "Actually, I want to accept the invitation." Marina blinked several times, confused. "Do you want to?" "Yes, but on one condition." He put his phone away and leaned forward. "That you spend some time with me before the dance. Not as part of your plan, but for real. No masks, no social games." There was something about the way he spoke that made Marina feel exposed, as if all her carefully constructed layers had been peeled away at once. "Why would you do that?" she asked, genuinely intrigued. "Knowing the plan, because I think you're just as trapped as I am," he replied simply. "It's just that my prison was a choice and yours, well, yours has been built around you since you were little, hasn't it?" The words hit Marina like a punch in the stomach. Never in all her years of social reign had anyone spoken to her like this, as if they actually saw her. "Like you." "How do I know?" he smiled. "I watch people, Marina. That's what I do. And you're fascinating. The way your eyes change. When you think no one is looking, the way your smile changes when you're truly happy, which is rare, by the way." Marina felt her hands tremble slightly under the table. "And what do you want to do during that time?" "Nothing special. We can start with coffee after class. Without your driver, without your group of friends, just two people talking." The bell rang in the distance, announcing the start of classes. Lucas began to gather his papers carefully, storing them in a folder that looked too expensive for his unassuming appearance. "You don't have to answer now," he said, standing up. "But if you decide to accept, meet me at the cafe on the corner at 4. And Marina," he paused, looking her in the eyes, "come as yourself, not as the person everyone expects you to be." He walked out of the library, leaving Marina sitting there, her perfectly organized world beginning to spin on a new axis. For the first time in years, she didn't know which mask to wear, and the scariest thing was that a part of her was relieved about it. At 4 o'clock sharp, Marina was standing in front of the cafe, still wearing her school uniform, but without the elaborate makeup she usually wore. She had dismissed the driver with an excuse about extracurricular activities, something her mother always approved of, with her future college applications in mind. The cafe was an unassuming place, quite different from the establishments she usually frequented. Through the window, she could see Lucas already sitting at a table in the back, focused on his laptop. She took a deep breath and went inside. "You came," he said, without looking up from the screen, "and you came at exactly the right time." "How did you know it was me without looking?" Marina asked, sitting down. "The sound of your footsteps," he replied, finally closing his notebook. "You have a particular way of walking, you know, even when you're trying not to attract attention." A waitress approached, and to Marina's surprise, Lucas ordered on her behalf, "A chai latte with almond milk for Marina, please." "Like you. You always get it in the school cafeteria," he shrugged, "although there you ask them to put it in a Starbucks cup to keep up." Appearances. Marina felt her cheeks flush. "You really pay attention to everything, don't you?" "It's a habit," he smiled. "I learned from my sister that observing is the best way to understand people." "Your sister?" For a moment, a shadow passed over Lucas's face. "She taught me a lot about how the world works, mostly about how appearances can be deceiving." The waitress returned with their drinks, and Marina noticed that Lucas's coffee was simply black, with no sugar. There was something elegant about the way he held the cup, a refinement that seemed at odds with his purposefully simple appearance. "Why did you agree to come here with me?" he asked suddenly. "Knowing that I know about the plan, you could have just given up." Marina considered lying, making up some elaborate excuse, but something in Lucas's direct gaze made her opt for the truth. "Because you intrigue me. Everyone at school has an agenda. Everyone wants something from me, except you. It's like you're above all of this." "I'm not above anything," he replied. "I just chose not to participate in the game." "What game?" "The same thing you play every day, pretending to be someone you're not, to please people who also pretend to be someone they're not." The words hit Marina hard. It was the first time someone had put into words something she had felt for so long, but had never been able to express. "It's not that simple," she protested. "You don't understand the pressure." "I don't get it," he laughed softly. "Marina, you'd be surprised how much I understand about pressure and expectations." He opened his laptop again, turning the screen to face her. On the screen was a complex project, something that looked like some kind of social network, but completely different from anything Marina had ever seen. "What is that?" "A project I've been working on. A platform that connects people not by their appearance or social status, but by who they really are." Marina leaned in to get a better look, genuinely interested. The diagrams were complex, but there was something fascinating about the way everything connected. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you're the first person in school who looked at me and saw beyond the surface, even if it was for the wrong reasons initially." At that moment, Marina's cell phone began to vibrate insistently. It was the group of her friends, probably wanting to know about the progress of the plan. For the first time, she felt embarrassed when she saw the notifications. "Aren't you going to answer?" Lucas asked. "No," she said, muting the phone. "I think for once I want to actually be present somewhere." Lucas smiled, a genuine smile that completely transformed his face. "So tell me, Marina, who are you when no one is looking?" And so, in a simple cafe on a random afternoon, Marina began to discover that she might not know the answer to that question, but for the first time she was willing to look for it. In the days that followed, Marina found herself torn between two completely different worlds. During the day, she maintained her usual facade at school, but the afternoons with Lucas had become her refuge. They met in different places each day, public libraries, parks, discreet cafes, always talking about subjects that went far beyond the superficiality she was used to. "Aren't your friends suspicious?" Lucas asked one particularly pleasant afternoon, as they walked through the park. "They think I'm executing the plan perfectly," Marina replied, feeling a pang of guilt. "Valentina even suggested we film the moment of humiliation from multiple angles." Lucas nodded, showing no resentment. "And how do you feel about it now?" Marina stopped walking, watching a group of children playing in the distance. "Honestly, I feel horrible. I can't believe I've done things like this before." "It's not what you've done that matters, but what you choose to do now," Lucas said, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "You know, my sister used to say that people only change when they find something more valuable than their own masks. You talk about her a lot, but you never tell me exactly what happened," Marina observed. Lucas was silent for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "Let's just say she found out the hard way that some pressures are too heavy to carry alone." As they talked, Marina noticed a man in a suit in the distance who seemed to be watching them. Lucas followed his gaze and sighed. "Don't worry about him," he said simply. "Some people have a hard time respecting boundaries." Before Marina could question, her cell phone rang. It was her mother. "Marina, dear, where are you? Dinner with the Mullers starts in 2 hours and you need to get ready." "Dinner?" "I had completely forgotten," Marina whispered, hanging up the phone. "Go," Lucas said with an understanding smile. "Your social commitments await." But for the first time, the thought of putting on a designer dress and smiling for people who only cared about appearances made Marina feel physically ill. "You know what?" she said, picking up the phone again. "I think I'm feeling sick. Really sick." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? Your mother? I won't like it." "No, she won't," Marina smiled, feeling a surge of freedom. But maybe it's time she didn't like some things. They ended up at a simple diner in the city center, eating burgers, while Marina received increasingly angry texts from her mother. But there was something liberating about being there, with ketchup on the corners of her mouth and genuine laughter, without worrying about who might be photographing or judging her. "Why did you choose to be like this?" Marina asked suddenly. "I mean, you're clearly smart. You could be popular if you wanted to." Lucas wiped his hands on his napkin with an unconscious elegance that didn't match the surroundings. "Let's just say I learned early on that visibility isn't always desirable. Sometimes it's in the shadows that we find our true light." "You always speak in riddles," she laughed. "And you always try to figure them out," he replied. "That says a lot about both of us, don't you think?" When Marina finally arrived home, she found her mother waiting in the living room, furious. "Where have you been? The Mullers were extremely disappointed by your absence." "Mom," Marina said, surprising herself with the calm in her own voice. "Have you ever wondered if I'm happy being who you want me to be?" The question took Beatrice by surprise. For a moment, her mask of perfection also wavered. "What are you talking about? We gave you everything. The perfect life." "No, Mom. You gave me the life you thought was perfect. But for the first time, I'm starting to discover what's perfect for me." Marina went upstairs, leaving her mother in stunned silence. In her room, she stared at her reflection in the mirror, the same mirror she used every morning to construct her public persona. But now, for the first time, she began to see beyond the surface. The next morning, St. Perrin's College was abuzz, with preparations for the prom. Colorful posters decorated the hallways, and the buzz of dresses, dates, and the change of venue to a luxury hotel dominated every conversation. Marina, however, barely paid any attention to any of it. "Marina, we need to talk." Valentina intercepted her before the first class, pulling her into the girls' bathroom. Isabella was already there, leaning against the sink with her arms crossed. "What's going on with you?" "What do you mean?" Marina asked, although she already knew exactly what it was about. "You've been acting weird," Isabella interjected. "First, you disappear every afternoon. Then you miss the Muller's dinner, and now—" She paused dramatically. "People have been seeing you with Lucas in like normal places." The tone of disgust in Isabella's voice, which would have seemed natural to Marina before, now bothered her deeply. "So what?" Marina replied, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "What's wrong with being with him?" Valentina laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. "What's wrong?" "Mari, honey, are you forgetting the plan? It was supposed to be an epic humiliation, not a teen movie romance." "Maybe the plan was wrong from the start," Marina said, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. "Maybe I'm just tired of pretending to be someone I'm not." "What are you talking about?" Isabella stepped closer. "You're Marina Allard, the Queen of St. Perrin. Everyone wants to be you." "No," Marina replied, feeling a strength she didn't know she had. "I am who you want me to be, and for the first time I'm discovering who I really am." She turned to leave, but Valentina grabbed her arm. "If you screw this up, Marina, you'll regret it. We've had videos of you doing some not-so-nice things for the past few years. It would be a shame if they got out." Marina pulled away, facing her former friends. "Say what you want, Val. I'm no longer afraid of who I was." She left the bathroom with her heart racing, but her head held high. In the hallway, she bumped into Lucas, who seemed to be waiting for her. "Everything okay?" he asked. though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "No," she answered honestly, "but it will be. Want to go for a walk?" "Now? We have—" "Class?" Lucas smiled, that enigmatic smile that always seemed to hide some secret. Sometimes the most important lessons don't happen in the classroom. Minutes later, they were in Lucas's car, a discreet model that Marina now noticed was much more luxurious than it appeared at first glance. He drove with a skill that suggested years of practice, something unusual for a teenager. "Where are we going?" she asked, noticing that they were leaving the city behind. "I want to show you something," he replied. "Something that will help you better understand maybe who you can be." After a half-hour drive, they arrived at a complex of modern buildings on the outskirts of the city. The place looked like a technology campus with well-kept gardens and cutting-edge architecture. At the entrance, a security guard waved respectfully to Lucas, as if he knew him. "Where are we?" Marina asked as they walked through an impressive lobby. "This," Lucas said, guiding her to a private elevator, "is the Tech Future Solutions Development Center." Marina stopped abruptly. "Tech Future? The billion-dollar tech company?" "The same one," he confirmed, inserting a card into the elevator. "Or, as I prefer to call it, my family's legacy." The elevator began to rise, and Marina felt her world spin. The pieces began to fall into place. Lucas's ease with technology, the men in suits who sometimes watched them, the mysterious project on his laptop. "You are Lucas Sorrell, son of Roberto Sorrell, CEO of Tech Future," he added bluntly. "But that's just a name and a title. What really matters is what we do with what we have." The elevator doors opened onto an entire floor devoted to research and development. Young programmers worked at state-of-the-art stations, and on the walls huge screens displayed complex data and graphs. "Welcome to my real world, Marina," Lucas said, watching her stunned expression. "The question is, do you still want to know the real me now that you know who I really am?" Marina watched in fascination as Lucas led her around Tech Future's development floor. Each workstation looked like something out of a futuristic movie, with holograms and touchscreens displaying lines of code and groundbreaking designs. "This is the heart of our new project," Lucas explained, stopping in front of a glass-walled conference room. "The platform I showed you at the cafe, it's just the tip of the iceberg." Inside the room, a young woman, perhaps a few years older than them, was presenting something to a team. Seeing Lucas, she stopped her presentation and smiled, waving through the glass. "My sister, Helena," Lucas explained, "the real genius behind all of this." "But you said your sister had moved away." "And she walked away," Lucas confirmed. "From the CEO, from the spotlight, from the crushing expectations, but never from what really mattered, creating something that could make a difference." Helena left the room and approached them. There was a natural elegance in her movements, but also a simplicity that was very reminiscent of her brother. "So this is the famous Marina," Helena smiled, extending her hand. "Lucas talks about you a lot." Marina blushed. "He talks about you. A lot too, although I'm starting to realize I didn't know half the story." "Few people know," Helena replied. "It's easier to make a difference when people aren't too busy judging who you are or where you came from." A nearby screen showed the project they were working on, a revolutionary social network that used artificial intelligence to connect people based on values, genuine interests, and emotional compatibility, not just appearances and status. "Is that why you're at school like that?" Marina asked Lucas. "To test how people react when they don't know who you are?" "Partly," he admitted. "But mostly because I wanted to make sure that when I met people who were worth it, it would be because of who I am, not what I have." Helena watched the two interact with a knowing smile. "You know, Marina, when Lucas told me about the bet and the plan to humiliate him at the ball, I suggested that he simply ignore it. But he saw something in you." Marina felt her face burn with shame. "I'm so sorry about that. I am so different now." "That's exactly why he saw something in you," Helena continued, "because even surrounded by all that superficiality, there was something genuine trying to get out." Lucas left them talking for a moment, while he checked something with his team. Marina noticed how everyone there treated him with natural respect, not out of fear or imposition. "How did you do it?" Marina asked Helena. "Get away from all that, the expectations, the pressure." Helena considered the question for a moment. "It wasn't easy. For years I was the perfect heiress, the brilliant young CEO everyone wanted me to be. But each day was a new mask, a new role to play, until one day I realized that I was so busy being who everyone wanted me to be, that I had forgotten who I really was. And you know what's so ironic? It wasn't until I stopped trying to prove myself to others that I actually started doing something worthwhile." Marina looked at her own reflection in the glass wall. The girl she saw there still looked the same on the outside, but on the inside something fundamental had changed. "What if I don't know who I really am?" she asked quietly. Helena smiled gently. "That's the first step, admitting you don't know. The rest is a journey worth taking." Lucas came back at that moment, carrying something in his hands. It was a small black box with the Tech Future logo on it. "What is this?" Marina asked. "A choice," he replied. "Inside this box is a prototype of our new system. You would be the first person outside the company to test it. But it has to be your choice, Marina. Not because it's what we expect of you, but because it's what you want." Marina looked at the box, at Helena, and finally at Lucas. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was about to make a choice that was truly hers. Returning to school the next day was different. Marina carried the small black box in her bag like a precious secret, along with all the revelations of the previous day. The world around her seemed the same, but she saw it with different eyes. Right at the entrance, Valentina and Isabella were waiting for her with determined expressions. Beside them, other girls from the popular group held their cell phones in a threatening manner. "So," Valentina began, her voice louder than necessary, drawing the attention of everyone in the hall. "Since you've decided to betray us, I think everyone deserves to see who you really are." Videos began to play on her cell phone screens. Marina recognized each one. Moments when she had bullied others, situations when she had been cruel just to maintain her social status. Her heart raced, but not out of fear of exposure. "You know what's different between those videos and—" "Now, Val," Marina said, her voice calm and clear, "it's that I'm no longer ashamed to admit my mistakes." A murmur ran through the hallway. This was not the reaction they had expected. "Every single person in these videos deserves my apology," Marina continued, looking directly at her peers who had gathered around. "And not because I'm being exposed, but because I finally understand how wrong I was." "Are you crazy?" Isabella hissed. "This will ruin your reputation." Marina laughed, a genuine sound that surprised even her. "You know what's funniest, Isa? That for the first time, I don't care about reputation. I care about being real." That moment, Lucas appeared in the hallway. He was different, not in his clothes or appearance, but in his posture. There was a natural authority in his walk that he had previously carefully hidden. "Is everything okay here?" he asked, stopping next to Marina. "Perfectly fine," Marina replied, smiling at him. "Just some truths coming to light." Valentina looked from one to the other, her expression changing from anger to confusion. There was something about the way Lucas held himself that made her instinctively recoil. "Don't you guys get it yet?" Marina asked the group. "We spend so much time trying to be perfect that we forget to be real. I'm tired of it, and I bet I'm not the only one." As if her words had broken some kind of spell, other students began to speak out. One girl stepped forward, confessing how she felt pressured to maintain a certain image on social media. A boy admitted that he pretended to like parties when he really preferred to stay home and read. "What's going on here?" Director Monica's voice cut through the hubbub. She watched the scene with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "A silent revolution, Director," Lucas replied, his voice quiet but firm. "Against masks and for truth." The headmistress looked at him for a long moment, as if seeing him for the first time. "Mr. Sorel," she said, surprising everyone who did not know her true identity, I imagine this has something to do with the project your father told me about. Lucas nodded. St. Piran's College has been chosen as the first test environment for our new social platform. With your permission, of course. Marina watched, fascinated, as Lucas assumed a professional posture that seemed as natural as his previous discretion. The director smiled, a rare gesture that transformed her usually austere face. Well, it looks like the results have already started to show, she commented, looking meaningfully at Marina. Valentina and Isabella, realizing that they had lost control of the situation, slowly retreated. The other students, however, came closer, curious about what was happening. Marina took the black box out of her bag, feeling its symbolic weight. Inside was not just a technological device, but a promise of change, a way to connect people for who they really were, not who they pretended to be. Sometimes, she said, more to herself than to others, we have to lose everything we thought was important to find out what really matters. Lucas placed his hand on her shoulder, a simple gesture but full of meaning. Ready to show them? Marina looked at the box, at the curious faces around her, and finally at Lucas. I think we're all ready for something real. In the school library, which had been temporarily transformed into a presentation space, Marina and Lucas prepared to unveil the Tech Future project. Word of Lucas's true identity had spread, quickly but in a different way than it normally would, not with malicious gossip, but with genuine interest in what he had to offer. How exactly does it work? Asked Pedro, one of the students who had always kept a low profile, avoiding the spotlight as much as Lucas. Marina opened the black box, revealing a sleek device that resembled a tablet, but with clearly more advanced technology. The screen lit up with a soft glow, displaying a minimalist, intuitive interface. It's a social network unlike anything you've ever seen, Lucas explained, naturally taking on the role of host. Instead of edited photos and rehearsed poses, it analyzes patterns of behavior, real interests and shared values. But how does she know what's real? Asked Anna, a former follower of Valentina, who now showed genuine interest. The platform uses an algorithm developed by my sister, Lucas continued. It identifies patterns of authenticity across multiple layers of interaction. It's not just about what you say, but how you consistently act. Marina tapped the screen, scrolling through the interface. See, there are no likes or follows. Here, instead, there are connections based on real affinities. The system recognizes when you're being genuine and connects you with people who share similar values. Principal Monica, who had been watching everything from the back of the room, stepped forward. And how does this apply to the school environment? Imagine, Marina replied, feeling surprisingly confident, a space where students don't have to pretend to like something to be accepted, where groups form based on genuine interests, not social status. Lucas smiled, proud of how Marina had perfectly understood the concept. St. Piran will be the first school in the world to implement this system, not to replace real interactions, but to facilitate them in a more authentic way. Suddenly, Valentina burst into the library, but her face didn't show its usual arrogance. There was something different about her expression. Can I try?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. A surprised silence filled the room. Marina and Lucas exchanged glances, and he nodded slightly. "Of course," Marina replied, handing the device to her former friend. "That's what it's for all of us." Valentina picked up the device carefully, as if it might break. When the screen lit up, her first interactions revealed something unexpected. A deep interest in art and classical literature, something she had always hidden to maintain her image as a popular leader. "I've never told anyone," she whispered, "but I spend hours reading Jane Austen in secret." "And there's nothing wrong with that," Marina replied gently. "In fact, the system has already identified 3 other people here who share this passion." Valentina's eyes widened as she saw the names on the screen, people she had never actually spoken to, too busy maintaining her own social mask. Lucas watched everything with a serene smile. "Do you know why we chose to start with a school?" he asked the audience. "Because this is where we learn our first masks. and this is where we can begin to free ourselves from them. Principal Monica cleared her throat, getting everyone's attention. Well, it looks like St. Perrin's is about to start a quiet revolution in education and technology. Mr. Sorel, Mrs. Allard, I believe you've just created something extraordinary here. Marina looked at Lucas, surprised by the way the director had included her in the project. He just smiled as if he always knew this would happen. Actually, Director, Lucas replied, I think we all do. Every person who decides to be authentic adds something valuable to that network. That's how real change happens. As the students took turns trying out the device, Marina watched the subtle transformations on their faces, the relief of no longer having to pretend, the excitement of meeting others with similar interests, the freedom to be themselves. The weeks that followed the project's presentation brought surprising changes to St. Perrin. The corridors, once divided into rigidly established social groups, now witnessed unlikely interactions. The old social hierarchy began to dissolve, giving way to more genuine connections. Marina observed these transformations with a mixture of admiration and reflection. At home, however, the changes were not received with the same enthusiasm. That evening, her mother was waiting for her in the living room, a worried expression on her face. Marina, we need to talk, Beatrice said, indicating the couch. I got a very interesting call today from Valentina's mother. Marina sat up straight, her mother always demanding it, but now by choice. Let me guess, she's worried about the changes at school? It's not just that, Beatrice continued, her tone carefully controlled. She told me about this project, about the Sorel son. Why didn't you tell me you were involved in something so important? Her mother's tone had changed subtly, from concern to an almost businesslike interest that Marina knew all too well. Because I didn't want you to turn this into another social strategy, Mom, Marina replied honestly. The project is about being authentic, not about convenient connections. But daughter, don't you see, this is an incredible opportunity. The Sorrels are one of the most influential families in the country. If you and Lucas— Stop, Marina interrupted, her surprising them both with her firmness. That's exactly why Lucas chose to live the way he did, to avoid people who are only interested in what he represents, not who he is. Beatrice looked genuinely confused. But that's not how the world works, dear. Connections, appearances, status. Maybe that's how your world works, Mum, Marina said softly, but we're creating something different. At that moment, her phone vibrated. It was a notification from the new system, informing her that a literature study group had been formed, led by Valentina, of all people. You know what's amazing, Marina continued, showing the screen to her mother. Seeing people discover who they really are when they stop trying to be who others want them to be. Beatrice looked at the screen, then at her daughter as if truly seeing her for the first time. You've changed so much. No, Mom, I just stopped pretending. The next day at school, Marina found Lucas in the library, now a much busier space than it used to be. He was helping a group of students set up their profiles in the system. How's it going at home? He asked as she approached. Different, she replied, sitting down beside him. My mother found out who you are. Lucas smiled, that smile she now knew so well. Let me guess. Suddenly, she thinks we're the perfect couple. Something like that. Marina laughed. But I think she's starting to understand that things have changed, that I've changed. Everyone's changing, Lucas observed, gesturing to the space around them. Look at Valentina. Across the library, Valentina led a lively discussion of Pride and Prejudice, her eyes shining with a passion she had previously kept hidden. Beside her, students who had previously barely spoken to each other shared their insights and experiences. The dance is in 2 weeks, Marina commented, changing the subject. Do you still want to go with me even after everything? Lucas closed his laptop and turned to her. Now more than ever, but not because it's part of some plan or expectation. Simply because I want to be there with you, even knowing how it all started. Marina, he took her hand gently, sometimes the best endings come from the worst beginnings. What matters is not how the story began, but how we choose to continue. At that moment, Helena entered the library carrying a box with more devices. Seeing Marina and Lucas, she smiled meaningfully. "The board has approved the expansion of the project," she announced, stepping closer. "St. Perrin will officially be the model for a revolution in the way schools approach social connection and personal development." "That's amazing," Marina exclaimed. "And there's more," Helena continued, her eyes shining with excitement. "We want you, Marina, to lead the Student Ambassador program. There's no one better than you to show how change is possible." Marina felt the weight of that responsibility, not as a burden, but as an opportunity to make the real difference she always wanted, even without knowing it. "What do you think?" Lucas asked softly. Marina looked around the library, at all, the faces now free of masks, at Valentina discovering her true passion, at the unlikely groups that formed naturally. Then she looked at Lucas, who had risked his own mask to show her a different path. "I think it's time to help others find their own truth," she replied, feeling for the first time completely at peace with who she was. The announcement of the change of venue for the ball caused quite a stir in St. Perrin. The prestigious Royal Gardens Hotel, known for hosting only the city's most exclusive events, would be the new venue for the graduation. What few knew was that the hotel belonged to the Sorrel family business group. "Are you sure about this?" Marina asked Lucas as they walked through the hotel grounds during a reconnaissance visit. "You didn't have to change the location just for me." "It wasn't just because of you," he replied, leading her down a path between perfectly manicured rose bushes. "The school gym did have structural problems. I took the opportunity to offer an alternative." Marina smiled, recognizing the modesty in his voice. In the past few days, since his true identity had been revealed, Lucas had maintained the same discreet demeanor as always, even when everyone knew he could easily dominate the social scene. "Is Helena coming to the ball?" she asked, curious about the sister who had become a sort of mentor to her. "Yes," Lucas confirmed. "Actually, she has a surprise planned, something related to the project." They stopped on a balcony that offered a panoramic view of the city. The afternoon sun painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, creating an almost magical scene. "You know what's funny?" Marina said, leaning on the railing. "When all this started, I thought I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. Now, it's like I'm discovering myself for the first time." Lucas watched her with that penetrating gaze that seemed to see beyond appearances. "And what have you discovered so far?" "That being real is much harder than being perfect, but it's also much more rewarding." At that moment, Marina's cell phone vibrated with a message from Valentina. Since she had started leading the literature club, she had completely transformed. The message was an invitation to participate in a discussion about Jane Eyre, something the old Valentina would never have admitted to liking. "It's amazing how people can surprise us when we give them the chance to be authentic," Marina commented, showing the message to Lucas. "That was always the goal of the project," he replied. "Not to create another social network, but a space where people could rediscover their own truth." A gentle breeze ruffled Marina's hair, and she closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the freedom that came with authenticity. When she opened them again, she noticed Lucas watching her with a different expression. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I was thinking about how everything has changed since that day in the library, when you came to ask me to the dance as part of a bet." Marina felt her face heat up at the memory. "I'm sorry about that." "Don't apologize," he interrupted her gently. "That moment brought us here, and this is exactly where we're supposed to be." On the way home, Marina reflected on how her life had changed in such a short time. The project wasn't just a new technology, it was a transformative tool that was affecting everyone around her. In her room later, she found a small package on her bed. Inside was a delicate butterfly brooch with a note from Helena. To remind us that the greatest transformations begin when we have the courage to leave our cocoon. Marina pinned the brooch to her blouse and looked at herself in the mirror, the same mirror she had used before to check whether her social mask was perfect. Now she saw something different. Not a carefully constructed image, but a real person, constantly evolving. Her cell phone vibrated again, this time with a message from Lucas. "Ready for tomorrow, last system rehearsal before the dance." She smiled, typing her response. "More than prepared. For once, I'm not trying to prepare myself to be someone else. Just myself." On the eve of the ball, St. Perrin's was buzzing with a different energy. What had once been just another status-showing social event had become something more meaningful. Students, now connected in more authentic ways through Tech Future's system, planned performances and special moments that celebrated their true passions. Marina was in the computer room, helping Helena make the final adjustments to the system for the big event. The screen in front of her showed a map of connections between students, no longer divided by popularity or social status, but by genuine interests and real affinities. "It's amazing," Marina said, watching the patterns form naturally. "Look at Valentina's group. She connected people from all grades through literature." Helena smiled, adjusting some parameters in the program. "You know what's most impressive? The system didn't create anything new. It just revealed connections that were always there, hidden under layers of social expectations." At that moment, Isabella entered the room. Since the project was revealed, she had kept her distance, being one of the few who still resisted the change. But there was something different in her expression today. Can I talk to you guys?" she asked, her voice less confident than usual. Helena exchanged a quick glance with Marina and nodded, indicating a chair. Isabella sat down, nervously playing with the hem of her blouse. "I know I've been difficult the last few weeks," she began, "but last night after everyone left I tried the system, and it showed me something I've never admitted to anyone." "What's wrong?" Marina asked softly. "That I love classical music. I've been playing the piano since I was 6, but I always hid it because I thought it didn't fit my image. The system connected me with 5 other students who also play classical instruments." Helena smiled gently. "And how did you feel about this discovery?" "Free," Isabella replied, her eyes brimming with tears. "For the first time in a long time, I felt free. We were thinking of doing a surprise performance at the ball, a piece by Mozart." Marina felt her heart expand with pride and excitement. "That would be amazing, Isa. But what if people laugh? What if—" "Look around you," Helena interrupted her gently. "Do you see anyone laughing at Valentina for loving classic literature? Or Pedro for being passionate about chess?" Isabella looked out the classroom window, where she could see groups of students interacting naturally, without the old social barriers. "No, actually everything seems more light now." Lucas chose that moment to enter the room, carrying some boxes with the last equipment for the ball. When he saw the scene, he stopped at the door. "Is everything okay here?" "More than fine," Marina replied, smiling. "I think we just got a special performance for tomorrow." Lucas put the boxes down and walked over. "Let me guess. It has something to do with the grand piano that's going to be in the main hall?" Isabella's eyes widened. "How did you—" "Let's just say some coincidences are carefully planned," he winked. "The hotel has always had a piano, but I made sure it was placed in a prominent place." You knew?" Isabella asked, surprised. "The system showed that there were many hidden musical talents in the school. I thought it would be a shame not to give them a proper stage." Helena watched the interaction with a knowing smile. "Sometimes, all people need is a safe space to be themselves." Marina picked up her phone and opened the project app. On the screen, new connections were forming in real time, a living network of authenticity that grew with every moment. "You know what's amazing?" she said, showing the screen to everyone. "Every person who decides to be authentic inspires others to do the same. It's like a real domino effect." Isabella stood up, looking lighter and more determined. "I need to find my group. We have a lot to rehearse for tomorrow." When she left, Helena turned to Marina. "Ready for tomorrow's big reveal?" "What revelation?" Marina asked, curious. Lucas and Helena exchanged knowing glances. "Let's just say the ball is just the beginning," Lucas replied. "The project goes far beyond St. Perrin." Marina felt a thrill of anticipation. The ball, which had previously been the stage for a planned humiliation, would now become something much bigger, a moment of celebration not just of a graduation, but of a true revolution in the way people connected and showed themselves to the world. The night before the ball, Marina stood in her room looking at the dress she had chosen. Not the extravagant number her mother had initially insisted she buy, but something simpler and more elegant, something that reflected who she really was. Beatrice knocked softly on the door and entered. "Can I?" her mother asked, something different in her voice. Marina nodded, watching through the reflection in the mirror as her mother approached and gently touched the fabric of the dress. "You?" "No," Beatrice began. "When I was your age, there was also a time when I wanted to be different, to be myself." Marina turned around, surprised. It was the first time her mother had said something like that. "What happened?" he asked softly. "Life happened, or rather fear happened. Fear of not being accepted, of not being successful, of not living up to expectations." Beatrice sat on the edge of the bed. "Seeing you these past few months, the way you've changed, the way you've faced everything, it's made me think a lot." "Mother." "No, let me finish." Beatrice raised her hand. "Earlier today I went to the school. I wanted to better understand this project you're part of." Marina held her breath, remembering how her mother had initially seen the project as just an opportunity for social connection with the Sorrels. "Director Monica showed me how it works," Beatrice continued. "And do you know what impressed me most? It wasn't the technology nor the prestige of the Sorrel family. It was seeing how different the students were. Happy, real." She got up and went to the dressing table, where the butterfly brooch Helena had given Marina rested. "The principal told me about your role in the project, about how you've helped other students find their own voice." Beatrice took the pin carefully. "I think all this time, while I was trying to teach you to be perfect, you were teaching me to be real." Marina felt tears forming in her eyes. "I always wanted you to be proud of me." "And I'm proud," Beatrice approached, pinning the brooch to Marina's dress. "More than ever, because you had the courage that I didn't have at your age." Marina's cell phone vibrated with a message from Lucas. "Everything is ready for tomorrow. Helena has a surprise that will change everything." "He's a good guy, isn't he?" Beatrice commented, seeing the name on the phone. "And not because of the name he carries, but because of who he chose to be." "Yes," Marina smiled. "He taught me that sometimes we need to hide to find who we really are." Beatrice hugged her daughter, a gesture that had long since become rare between them. "Tomorrow will be a great day." "Bigger than anyone imagines," Marina replied, thinking about the mysterious revelation that Helena had prepared. After her mother left, Marina opened the project app one last time before going to sleep. On the screen, thousands of connections shone like stars, each representing a person who had found the courage to be authentic. Somewhere in the city, she knew, Lucas and Helena were making the final preparations for what was to come. The ball would be just the beginning of something much bigger. A quiet revolution that had begun at an elite school, but that would soon show the world that true human connection goes far beyond social masks and appearances. Marina took one last look at her reflection in the mirror. Tomorrow St. Perrins would witness not just a prom, but the birth of a new era, one in which being authentic was not just accepted, but celebrated. The Royal Gardens Hotel glowed under the early evening sky. The main lobby had been transformed into a magical space, with soft lighting and elegant decor that blended technology and nature. Discrete screens on the walls displayed constellations of the project's connections, creating a unique atmosphere. Marina arrived with her parents. Her father, who had been traveling for work in recent weeks, was struck by the change in his daughter's demeanor. It wasn't just the elegant dress or the butterfly brooch that shone subtly. It was something in her gaze, a quiet confidence that came from within. "You look beautiful," a familiar voice sounded behind her. Lucas was impeccable in his dark suit, but he maintained that unpretentious air that characterized him. "You're not too bad yourself," she smiled, noting how he seemed perfectly at ease in his dual role, the Lucas she'd known at school and the Sorrel heir. Marina's parents approached Lucas, and she could see the exact moment her father recognized who he was. However, before he could make any comment about business or business connections, Helena appeared. "Good evening, everyone," she greeted with effortless elegance. "Mr. and Mrs. Allard, do you mind if I steal Marina away for a moment? We have a few final details to work out." Marina followed Helena to an adjacent room where several monitors displayed different aspects of the project. Valentina was already there, along with Isabella and other students who had become ambassadors for the system. "The time has come," Helena announced, her face lit with a mixture of anticipation and pride. "What began as an experiment in a school is about to become something much bigger. What exactly is going to happen today?" Valentina asked, who now displayed a different confidence based on who she really was. Helena tapped one of the screens, revealing a global map, dotted with lights. "Right now, 50 schools around the world are connected to our system. St. Perrin's was just the pilot project. Today, during the ball, we'll activate all of these connections simultaneously." Marina felt her heart race at the magnitude of what was about to happen. "So it's not just about our school." "It never was," Lucas added, entering the room. "It's about changing the way young people around the world connect and express themselves. And you, especially you, Marina, have helped prove that this is possible." The monitors began to display the faces of teenagers from different countries, all part of the same quiet revolution that had begun there. Marina recognized in their eyes the same desire for authenticity that she had discovered in herself. "But there's more," Helena continued. "Each school has developed its own form of authentic expression. During the ball, we will have simultaneous performances connected through the system. Isabella's classical music, for example, will be accompanied by musicians from a school in Vienna." Isabella, who was standing near the piano, played a few soft notes. On one of the monitors, a young violinist in Vienna smiled and responded with a complimentary melody. "It's like a global celebration of authenticity," Valentina noted emotionally. "Exactly," Helena smiled, "and St. Perrin will lead the way, showing that when we break down the barriers of appearance, we create truly meaningful connections." The sound of people arriving in the main hall began to grow louder. Lucas checked his watch. "It's time. Does everyone know what to do?" Marina looked at her peers, no longer divided by status or popularity, but united by a common purpose. Each of them had found their own voice, their own role in this transformation. "I think it's time we show the world that being real is the new thing," she said, feeling both the weight and the lightness of that moment. Helena pressed a final button on the system. "All schools connected and ready, the future starts today." When they returned to the main ballroom, Marina noticed that something had changed in the room. It wasn't just the decor or the soft music. It was as if the very air was charged with possibility. This wouldn't be just another prom night. It would be the moment when an entire generation would begin to shed their masks. The ball began unlike any other event St. Perrin had ever witnessed. Instead of the traditional formal presentations and speeches, the main hall was filled with a unique energy as the screens on the walls came to life, revealing the faces of students from all over the world. Isabella was the first to perform. Sitting at the grand piano, her hands trembled slightly as she prepared herself. On the screen behind her, the young violinist from Vienna waited. Mozart's first notes filled the room, and something magical happened. The music transcended boundaries, connecting two souls who shared the same passion. "It's amazing," Marina whispered to Lucas, noting how genuinely moved the audience was. "Look how connected everyone is." Valentina took the stage next. Instead of giving the traditional class leader speech about popularity and social achievement, she began reciting a passage from Jane Eyre that spoke about authenticity and courage. On the screen behind her, students from other schools joined in, each in their own language, creating a polyphony of authentic voices. Helena, who was watching everything from a discreet corner of the room, signaled to Marina. It was time for the big reveal. "Good evening, everyone," Marina began, her voice clear and steady over the microphone. "A few months ago, when we started this journey, I thought I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. I was the popular girl, the one everyone wanted to be like or be around. But that wasn't me. It was just a mask I had learned to wear, so well that I had almost forgotten my real face. The screens around the room now showed the attentive faces of students in dozens of countries, all connected at that moment. The project you have learned about in recent weeks is not just an app or a social network. It is a movement, a silent revolution that begins when we decide to be who we really are. Lucas joined her on stage, and the screens began to display real-time data. Thousands of connections forming simultaneously around the world, each based on genuine interests and real affinities. Right now, Lucas continued, 50 schools around the world are joining us, not to create another platform for appearances, but to build a space where every person can find their own voice. Elena took the stage, bringing with her a presence that immediately captured everyone's attention. What you witnessed at St. Perrin's was just the beginning. Imagine a world where young people don't have to pretend to be someone they're not in order to be accepted, where connections are built on real foundations, not on social masks. The screens now showed moments from the past few weeks. Valentina discovering her passion for literature, Isabella returning to music, unlikely groups, forming based on real interests. Each image was mirrored by similar scenes in other schools around the world. But the real revolution, Marina continued, happens within each of us, the moment we choose to be authentic. When we understand that our true strength is not in who we pretend to be, but in who we really are. The entire room was silent, absorbing the significance of this moment. This wasn't just a prom, it was the birth of something bigger, a fundamental shift in the way an entire generation saw themselves and connected with others. Suddenly, a soft music began to play. It was an original composition created collaboratively by students from different schools around the world. Every note carried the essence of what they were celebrating, the beauty of authenticity, the power of truth, the magic of real connections. As the collaborative music echoed through the hall, something extraordinary began to happen. The screens showing different schools around the world began to display spontaneous messages from students, personal revelations, moments of courage, stories of transformation. A girl in Tokyo shared how she had always hidden her passion for robotics to maintain an image of popularity. A boy in Paris revealed his love for poetry, something he had never dared to share before. The stories multiplied, creating a global web of authenticity. Marina watched everything next to Lucas, her hands clasped discreetly. "It's much bigger than we imagined, isn't it?" "It always was," he replied softly, "but we had to start somewhere. And you, Marina, were the missing piece." "Me?" she asked, surprised. "Yes. When we planned this project, we knew we needed someone who understood both sides, the weight of social masks and the courage to be authentic. You were that person, even if you didn't know it." Helena approached them, her eyes shining with restrained emotion. "Look," she pointed to one of the larger screens. The system was recording a stunning phenomenon. In every connected school, groups were forming spontaneously, based not on social status or appearances, but on genuine interests and shared passions. It was like watching the birth of a new form of social interaction in real time. Valentina took the stage again, but this time she was not alone. Alongside her on the screens, literature students from different countries joined in a multilingual reading of poems that spoke of authenticity and personal discovery. "I never imagined I could feel so myself," Valentina said as she stepped off the stage. "It's like all those masks I was wearing weighed a ton, and now you can fly," Helena added, gently touching the butterfly brooch Marina was wearing. Principal Monica approached the group, accompanied by representatives from other schools who were participating virtually in the event. "What you have started here," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "is much more than a technological revolution. It is a revolution of humanity." At that moment, Isabella returned to the piano. But this time she was not nervous. Her fingers glided across the keys with confidence, and the melody that emerged was her own composition, a piece that spoke of transformation and courage. "You know what's amazing?" Lucas said, watching the scene unfold. "Every person who finds the courage to be authentic inspires others to do the same. It's an endless cycle of liberation. Marina looked around the room. She saw her parents talking animatedly with other parents, not about social status or business connections, but about the surprising discoveries they had made about their own children. She saw former popular groups mingling effortlessly with those they had barely noticed before. She saw genuine smiles, tears of emotion, heartfelt hugs. "It reminds me of something you said to me early on," she told Lucas, "about how sometimes we have to hide to find who we really are. And what do you think about it now?" "I think sometimes we need to completely lose ourselves in the masks we create to finally find the courage to show our true face." Helena, who had come closer again, smiled. "And sometimes we need someone who sees us through all the masks to remind us of who we really are." The screens now showed a mosaic of smiling faces from around the world, each part of the same quiet revolution that had begun at an elite school in the capital. This was no longer just about an app or a social network. It was about an entire generation discovering that true connection happens when we have the courage to be who we really are. "It's time," Helena announced, looking at her watch. "Are you ready for the last surprise of the night?" Marina and Lucas exchanged glances. The prom, which was supposed to be just another social event, had turned into something much bigger. It was the beginning of a new era, one in which authenticity was not only accepted, but celebrated as the most powerful form of human connection. The atmosphere in the hall changed subtly as Helena took center stage. The lights dimmed, and the screens around her began to display a silent countdown. Lucas gently guided Marina to the front of the audience, where they could clearly see what was about to happen. "What you have witnessed today," Helena began, her voice clear and steady, "is just the beginning. The project that was born here, at Saint Perrin, is not just about technology or social connections. It is about something much more fundamental, the courage to be who we truly are." The screens now displayed a series of impressive statistics. Thousands of authentic connections formed, hundreds of talents discovered, countless moments of courage and authenticity recorded. "But there is another side to this story," Helena continued, gesturing for Lucas and Marina to join her on stage. Her story of how two young people, coming from seemingly opposite worlds, showed us that the truest connections happen when we let our masks fall. Marina felt her heart race. Beside her, Lucas smiled serenely. "What began as a plan for humiliation," Helena continued, "has turned into one of the most beautiful stories of transformation I have ever witnessed, and that is why today, with great pride, I announce that Project Metamorphosis will be implemented in schools around the world." The screens exploded with images of the celebration of the 50 connected schools. But Helena wasn't finished. "And to lead this global expansion, we couldn't have chosen better people than Marina and Lucas, two people who have shown us that true change begins when we have the courage to be authentic." Marina looked at Lucas in surprise, who squeezed her hand gently. "Did you know that?" "I knew you'd be perfect for this," he replied softly. Helena handed each of them a small object. They were brooches identical to the one Marina was wearing, but these glowed with a soft light, powered by technology that seemed magical. These symbols, Helena explained to the audience, represent not just a personal transformation, but a commitment to something greater, a commitment to helping others find their own truth. The screens now showed young people from different parts of the world receiving similar pins, all of them chosen to be ambassadors for the project in their respective schools. "And now," Helena smiled, "I think we have one last surprise." With a gesture from her, the lights in the room changed, creating an effect that made it seem as if thousands of luminous butterflies were flying around the room. Each one represented an authentic connection formed through the project. Isabella began playing a new melody on the piano, accompanied virtually by musicians from around the world. Valentina and her literature group began a performance that combined poetry and movement. The screens showed similar performances happening simultaneously at other schools. Marina looked at Lucas, feeling tears of emotion forming in her eyes. "How are we going to do this? Lead a global revolution?" "The same way we started," he replied, smiling. "One step at a time, one truth at a time, one authentic connection at a time." Helena approached them one last time. "You two have reminded me of something I had forgotten," she said softly. "That sometimes we need to lose ourselves completely in order to truly find ourselves." The luminous butterflies continued to dance around the room, creating a magical spectacle of light and movement. It was as if each one carried a story of transformation, a promise of authenticity, a commitment to truth. The St. Perrin's prom, which was supposed to be just another social event, had become a landmark moment. The moment when an entire generation began to discover that their true strength lay not in their masks, but in their truths. As the evening wore on, the ball transformed into a spontaneous celebration of authenticity. The social divides that had once defined groups had disappeared completely. In the center of the room, Valentina led an impromptu reading circle, sharing her favorite books with people she never imagined would be interested in classic literature. Marina watched everything from a quieter corner of the room next to Lucas. Her ambassadorial brooch gave off a soft glow, reminding her of the responsibility she now carried. It wasn't a burden, but a mission that made her feel complete. "Thinking about how it all started?" Lucas asked, noticing her contemplative look. "Actually, thinking about how everything has changed," she replied. "Look at Isabella." At the piano, Isabella was now teaching a few basic notes to a group of first-year students, her face lit up with a genuine joy that Marina had never seen before. "You know what's amazing?" Helena approached, holding a tablet that showed real-time data from the project. "Every story of transformation that has happened here is inspiring similar stories in other schools. It's like a butterfly effect of authenticity." Screens. Around the hall continued to show celebrations from around the world. In Tokyo, a group of students performed a fusion of robotics and traditional art. In Paris, teenage poets shared verses in different languages. In Mumbai, a performance of classical Indian dance blended with contemporary elements. "But there's still something I need to do," Marina said, squaring her shoulders. With purposeful steps, she headed over to where her parents were talking with other adults. "Mom, Dad," she called softly, "can I talk to you for a minute?" Beatrice and Raphael followed her to a more private corner of the room. Marina took a deep breath before beginning. "I wanted to thank you," she said, surprising her. "Parents, not for the years of trying to make me perfect, but for giving me the foundation to discover that perfection is not what I needed to be." Beatrice wiped away a discreet tear. "Daughter, we are the ones who need to thank you. You have taught us more in the last few weeks than we have been able to teach you in years. And as for this new responsibility," Raphael added, referring to the role of global ambassador, "know that we are with you, not because it is a prestigious position, but because it is something that really makes your eyes shine." The moment was interrupted by a commotion near the stage. Helena was announcing something on the screens. "Attention, everyone!" His voice echoed through the hall. "We have just received an incredible confirmation. The Metamorphosis project has been officially approved by UNESCO as a model program for educational transformation. Starting next semester, schools in 100 more countries will implement the system." A wave of applause and cheers filled the room. On the screens, students from different parts of the world celebrated together, united by an invisible network of authenticity. Lucas approached Marina and her parents carrying a small box with him. "I think it's time," he said enigmatically. "Time for—" "What?" Marina asked, curious. He opened the box, revealing a device that looked like a more advanced version of the brooch they wore. "To show the world that the real revolution is not in technology, but in the hearts of the people." The new device began to glow, projecting into the air a three-dimensional hologram that showed all the connections formed that night, a luminous web of shared truths and abandoned masks. "It's beautiful," Marina whispered, watching as each point. Side of light represented a person who had found the courage to be authentic. "It's real," Lucas corrected softly, "just like everything that happened between us." In that moment, looking at the hologram of true connections, at her parents who finally saw her for who she was, at her peers freed from their old masks, Marina understood that she had participated in something truly transformative. The prom, which was supposed to be her moment of social triumph, had become the beginning of a silent revolution that would echo for generations. In the early hours of the morning, as the ball drew to a close, Marina found herself once again in front of the hotel bathroom mirror. But this time, there were no masks to adjust or appearances to maintain. There was only herself, her butterfly brooch glowing softly, reflecting the person she had always been inside. The sound of soft footsteps announced the arrival of Helena, who smiled with a mixture of pride and satisfaction. "Ready to go?" Marina nodded, but before leaving she took one last look at her reflection. "You know, for years I've looked in this mirror looking for imperfections to correct. Today, for the first time, I see only me." When he returned to the hall, now emptier but still vibrating with the energy of the night, he found Lucas organizing the last details with the technical team. The screen still showed connections happening in different parts of the world. The project was still alive and pulsating, even after the end of the party. "So," he said upon seeing her, "I guess we've accomplished something a lot more than a simple prom humiliation, huh?" Marina laughed, remembering how it had all started. "Who would have thought that the cruelest plan of my life would turn into the most meaningful thing I've ever done?" Valentina approached, carrying her favorite books. "Marina, Lucas, thank you for showing us that we can be more than the masks we wear." One by one, people came forward to share their stories of transformation. Isabella spoke about how music had saved her soul. Pedro, once so shy, shared his plans to create a science club where everyone could be themselves. Helena gathered, everyone in a final circle. What happened here today was not just a dance or a technological project. It was the beginning of a silent revolution that will continue to echo. Each of you now carries a responsibility to continue being authentic and to inspire others to do the same. The first light of dawn was beginning to enter through the windows of the hall when Marina and Lucas went out onto the hotel balcony. The city below was slowly waking up, unaware of the transformation that had begun that night. "And now?" Marina asked, watching the horizon that was turning pink and orange. "Now," Lucas replied, taking her hand, "we truly begin. One heart at a time, one truth at a time." The butterfly brooch on her chest glowed brighter, as if responding to the promise of that moment. It wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning of something much greater. On her phone screen, a final system notification appeared. Authentic connection established. 100% compatibility. Marina smiled, putting the phone away. Some connections didn't need technology to be authentic.